Hello and welcome to BlenderTutor.com. My name is Tom Latvies and this is the 6th tutorial in the Blender Bootcamp Series. In this tutorial we're going to go over lighting basics in Blender, so let's get started. Okay, so this is the finished lighting scene we're going to create with this tutorial, and then alternatively I'm going to go over creating a, more moody scene as well. Obviously with lighting there are so many different setups you can do, but I'm just going to go over some basics and then create a couple different styles. So let's get into Blender. I have my scene that we just finished in the last tutorial open right now. I'm going to clean some things up real quick. Oh, I had to close this one first. Okay, and I'm just going to save this as my lighting. Alright, cool. So let's look at what we have. So as you can see, it's lit well enough that you can see everything, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's lit well. Although that is definitely an important thing, obviously. I'm going to go over some general kind of common mistakes that people make in lighting before they really know what they're doing. And one of them is just basically not lighting it enough. A lot of the time people will render out their scene and they might have one lamp in there and it's too dim and you're not going to be able to see anything. You're going to want to make sure that you can see at least what is important in the image clearly. That doesn't mean everything needs to be brightly lit. It just means that whatever you're trying to get across with the image, you want to be able to see what you're looking at clearly. And another common mistake is people just putting in too many lamps in their scene, and it kind of be everything's lit and you can see it, but for one, it looks very unnatural and strange because there might be shadows coming from 3 different directions. And what you want is you want your lighting to be motivated, and what that means is you want your lighting to have purpose, either to get a mood across, like you want it to look creepy, or you want it to look beautiful, or you want it to look warm or cold, you want it to look like it's daytime or nighttime, or maybe it's just a product shot and you want it to look as nice as possible. You want your light to have motivation. You don't want to just have lights just so you could see the object. The only purpose you'd ever do that for is maybe just test rendering, but even then I would recommend setting up a general, basic nice lighting setup from the start, just because your scene can change so much with lighting. When you're trying to set it up, you want to have at least a basic idea of what you're going to go for before you even get to that point. A lot of the time actually people will set up their lights before they even set up their scene, and then they'll just do minor tweaking at the end. And that's definitely a good way to work. One good resource for lighting, in fact, is this book by a Pixar lighter, digital lighter. It's called Digital Lighting and Rendering. This is the 2nd edition. I would highly recommend this book if you're interested in digital lighting. It has a lot of useful information. It gives theory behind everything, so it's not telling you what to do, it explains it as well. So it's called Digital Lighting and Rendering. I've read through it. It's actually very interesting and it'll improve your lighting a lot. I will link to this on the website, but it's definitely worth checking out. Okay, so what I'm going to go over first today is basically what's called a basic 3-point lighting setup. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You're going to have 3 lights in your scene, and let me find, I have a image actually. Okay. So with 3-point lighting, you're going to have your object or your general scene in the center. And you're going to have your first main light is going to be your key light. That's going to be the most powerful light, and that's going to be where most of the lighting is coming from in your scene. It might be the sun, it might be a lamp, you know, whatever it is, that's your main light. Your second light is going to be your fill light, and that's going to be basically on the opposite side of the object. And that's going to just be filling in all of those shadows on this side. This is going to be probably about half the power of your key light. You know, you can tweak it to your liking, but generally it's definitely going to be a lot lower than your key light. And then with the backlight, it's going to be once again kind of a lower power light behind the object to fill in, you know, it really, once you have your backlight in there, it fills in some nice highlights on your object that makes it feel like a 3D object, and it won't look so flat. So we're gonna do a basic 3-point lighting setup right now. So the way I'd like to do it is I'm gonna return my cursor to the center, hit period. You know what, let me turn on my screencast. Okay. So we'll take this, you know, this is our biggest light in the scene. This is our main light. What I'm going to do is bring this over here, and this is going to be our key light. So I'm going to rotate that on the Z over this way. And I'm going to actually hide this for a moment. I could just hit H to hide that light. And now we can look at our scene and see what it looks like with just our key light. And as you can see, you know, we can see everything nice. It's not finished yet, but we can definitely see everything already. It's nice and well lit. Next, what we're going to do is bring back that second light and create that as our fill light. So if I hit Alt H, it's going to bring that light back. If I rotate around there again, I'm going to bring that over here as our fill. I'm going to scale that down a little. And I'm going to go into the actual material settings for this object as well. So this is a 1, this is a 2, and this has got a slight blue tint, this has got the nice yellow tint. So let's see how that looks compared. And actually, I'll have that selected so we can turn it on and off in the scene while it's being rendered. So let's hide it. So this is what our scene looks like without the light. And I'll bring it back. And it's actually not very powerful. All it's really giving us right now, since the scene's already so lit, is it is giving us some additional highlights on our objects, which is useful. I mean, highlights alone will fill out an object when, with one light alone, it will look very flat. So that alone is already helping. We're going to add one more light in there. We're going to add our backlight to finish out the scene. So I'll take this one, I'll duplicate it by hitting Shift D, then I'll rotate around like that, and actually to move it closer to the table, let me make sure that's not in the scene. Okay, so I'm going to hit G and then double tap Z to bring that in closer like that. Let's see what that looks like. Clearly we're not going to want that light in there. I'm going to go over that in a moment, but let's hide that again. And bring it back. It's giving some nice additional reflections over here. Let's see what else. You know, some more reflection over here. So, in fact, I do like that on the coffee pot. It's filling in that, the pour. So, okay. And actually it's filling this plate and giving some nice reflections on the table as well. So I'm going to actually rotate that a little more so it's not quite fully in the scene. Let's look at that one more time. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, there's a way that you could actually hide your light so that it'll still light your scene, but it won't show up in the camera view. To do that, with your object selected, you could go over here to the object panel, scroll all the way down, and in Ray Visibility, you could actually turn off camera, so it's still going to be lighting the scene. You can still see we're getting that reflection right here on the coffee pot, but it's not showing up in the camera view anymore. So we're still getting these reflections on the table. It's a very useful tool right here to be able to turn it off. And you could turn off everything. You could turn it off so this light will not cast shadows. It'll only affect diffuse or glossy if you would turn one of those off. There's a lot of things you can do. It's very useful. So I'm going to keep that on. And already that is about it with this lighting setup. It's a pretty simple setup. It's just a 3-point lighting, and you could do it different ways. I could swap out my key and fill so it's lit from the other direction, and that alone will probably give it a little different feeling. So yeah, as you can see, that's a very easy setup that you could get good results with. Now we're going to actually create more of a... Oh, and actually before we move on, I just wanted to go over, this scene is also additionally being affected by the environment lighting, aside from just these lights that we've created. It is being affected by this gray all around it that's providing it with some light. If I were to go into the world settings right here, and if I were to turn this all the way down to black, you can see how much that darkens the scene. Especially with things that are reflective, it's getting almost no light on it anymore. That's why I was keeping that around halfway lit for this scene. It also very keeps the shadows a little duller and softer. It's very, soft lighting in this setup. But in the next setup I'd like to go over with you, I want to do maybe some more moodier lighting that'll give it a little harsher feeling. So I'm going to save this one more time. Then I'm going to save this as before. Now I'm actually going to move all of my lights to the second layer by hitting M on my keyboard, and then either hitting 2 on the top row of numbers, or I could just hit this right here and move them. And now if I ever want to go back to those, I could just swap back and forth between these layers. So right now, if we look at this, it's going to be very flat lighting again. It's only getting light from the environment. What I'm actually going to do though is turn this all the way down to black. So now we're getting 0 lighting right now, which is actually good because we have a blank canvas to work with now. So what I'm going to do is create a new lamp. I'm going to create a spot lamp and move that up. And I could actually turn on show cone so you can see where it's lighting. And I'm going to bring that up to about 100 because I'd like it to get on the wall as well. And then if it's not going far enough for you, you could actually just scale the lamp up. I'm going to go to the lamp real quick. So if I scale that up, it's not actually affecting the power of the lamp, but it's just showing you where the light beam is affecting. So I wanted to see where I am on that wall. So I'm going to move this lamp up a little more so I'm getting some lighting on that wall. Cool. Now, if we were to look at this, also, I'm imagining this is a light bulb hanging above the table in this dark room. So we have that on black. Okay. So this is set to a 100, which is the default. And now if we look at this though, it's incredibly dark. It's basically off. I'm not sure why this happens, but in the old Blender internal render engine, 100 was like pretty powerful, but now in cycles this almost means nothing. I actually had to crank this up to about 9 to 10,000 before I was getting the results I wanted. So now if I were to look at this, now you can see it's actually lighting it the way I'd like. Although these shadows are a little harsh. You could actually raise the size of this to soften the shadows a little. Might go up to 1.5. The larger the sizes of the lamp, the softer the shadows will be. And also inversely, if I were to go down to like 0.1, you can see the shadows now are very harsh. I'll actually keep it probably around 1 for now. With this though, I'm actually going to bring this down to maybe 8500. And I'm going to color this yellow-orange. Okay. And now, it's actually a little dim over there still, so I'm going to go back into lighting, and we're going to raise this blend amount a little so it's going to be softer around the edges. I might even bring this up so it covers more of that wall. I could even rotate that lamp a little bit just to cheat it. Now let's look at that. Okay, still a little dark. I might actually just raise the environment lighting just a little bit. I'm going to make it like a dark bluish color. And we'll do it like that. So just it gives a little bit of lighting to the scene. So now the walls aren't completely dark around the edges. And you know what? I'm going to go over this more in the rendering tutorial after this. But we're seeing all these fireflies, which are these white dots throughout the image. An easy way to get rid of those actually is to go to light paths, turn on no caustics, and already I think that should clear some of that up. Yeah, you can see we're getting way fewer of those. We're getting a couple, but those will go away if we render for long enough. So, okay, and now with this setup, I actually did add one additional light, so I'm going to go over to the second layer real quick. Might take my fill light, move it back to the first layer, move it in a little closer. Let's see how that looks. Okay. I might actually rotate that around a little bit like that. More side lighting. Now we're getting a little bit better reflection on this coffee pot. We're getting it on the handle, getting it on the rim right here. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. So you know, this isn't a perfect lighting setup, but as you can see, you could dramatically change the lighting pretty easily just by using different types of lights, different setups, and then the environment lighting as well. And then one last thing I'd like to go over with you is just how to set up an HDR image for lighting in your scene. So I will grab one real quick. With this, it's going to be in the world settings. You're actually going to have to turn on use nodes. And under color right here, if you select this little dot, you could actually go to environment texture. And now I could go to open. And I'm going to have to go into, I believe, textures. No. Might be on my desktop actually. Find my textures folder, HDRI. I have a bunch of free random ones. I don't think any of these are necessarily going to match this scene, but I'll just grab one right here. It's a .hdr image. Open that, and now if I go into render, you can see not only it's affecting my reflections, but it's also lighting the scene. I'm getting this color from this sky and ocean in my scene. And if I were to move both of these lights to another layer and just look at this with the image lighting, it's already going to light the entire scene from all directions. And I could actually turn the strength of this up if I think this is too dim. I can turn it up to like 3, and you can see that's already lit pretty well. You generally wouldn't use that alone, but it's definitely an additional tool that you can use for your scenes. That's very helpful, especially if you're doing outdoor scenes and you have water and you want some nice reflections from the sky, or a car or something. It's a great way to do that. So I'm going to call that a finished tutorial. In the next tutorial, we're going to go over rendering and then saving out an image in Blender. So see you then. Thanks.